Good evening, this is Tam Wendell with Bushcraft on Fire, and you're probably wondering what I'm doing. Well, I'm making butter. I discovered it's a lot faster to make butter this way than it is to use my mixer, and because I like to try to utilize time, I'm trying to make butter while I have a couple of projects going. Over here in the stove, I have another 2 gallons of milk, and what I'm doing is I'm going to bring it up to 200 degrees, and very simple, it's called farmer's cheese. You bring your milk to a boil, you add, if it's a gallon, about a quarter of a cup, if it's 2 gallons, up to half of a cup of vinegar, and you add that slowly in once your milk's at a boil, and you will watch cheese happen, as you'll see in a little bit. So while the milk is warming up, that always takes time, I'm going to make butter, and meanwhile, since we're going to be also having some fresh sourdough bread, I have my dough rising, and that's over on the other side here. That's some homemade sourdough. We started a sourdough starter, and so now we just regularly enjoy sourdough bread. So while that's rising, while the milk's warming, I'll be making butter. Instead of my old candy thermometer, I purchased a new one, and this one has a probe that just, see here, just goes down into your pot. You can use it in meat, in basically anything you're cooking. So it just hangs here, and it has magnet, so I have it up on my stove. Let's see if I can get a readout here. It shows 68, so you understand I'm warming this milk up slowly, because that's the proper way to do it. You don't want to scald the bottom of the pan. So once this reaches 200, then I can add my vinegar. Alright, we're getting to a point where it's going to get ready to separate from the cream into butter and whey. So just wanted to show you that while we were doing it. If you look now, you can begin to see that instead of cream, it's little lumps of butter. And the more you shake, the more it'll all gather together in one lump. If the camera's picking it up, you can see the yellow butter here. And then what I'm going to do is strain that. Get it to one good lump, and I'll be right back to show you how I strain it. What I do is I just, first of all, I use a pickle jar, 2 quarts, and I just take one of these sieves. Now that milk is called buttermilk. It is not the same as cultured buttermilk, but it's awesome for baking with. Flip it back in. Very simple. Everything takes place in one container, a lot less dishes to wash. What I'm doing is putting cold water in. Now what I'm doing is rinsing any residue milk out of the butter. I don't save that water, I just let that one go down the drain. Another quick rinse. Now in the last rinse, what I'm going to do is add salt to my water. That way I have already salted butter. So I'll just shake some in. Put water in again. And I use sea salt. The water will pick up the salt. Distribute it through my butter for me. there you go. Delicious lump of homemade butter, and hardly any effort to just clean this with some hot water. Now what I'm going to do is put this in the refrigerator in a bowl, and it'll take any excess water. If I press it, you can see. So I let it sit for a while. It'll take the water out and put it into a container. I either freeze it for later use, or if we need it like we do today, we use it right away. Alright, back to the timer here. I don't remember what time we started making the butter, but you can see my temperature is still only 122. So a little bit more patience here to wait for it to reach. I have it, my alarm set at 191, so that if I'm away, it'll beep and let me know that the temperature is 191. That's kind of a handy little thermometer here. So stick with us. We've got to get from 123 up to 199. So meanwhile, I will be punching down my dough and putting it into loaves. This is my dough, and this will make me 3 nice loaves. I do 2 smaller portions and 1 a little bigger because the pan is a bit bigger. Make sure all the air is out of the dough. Just a nice shaped dough. Alright, and last one, a bigger piece, so make sure the air's out. Now these have to rise until they come out of their dishes here, the baking tins. So while I'm waiting for the milk to heat, we'll let these rise and get right back to you. What I'm doing now is preparing for my cheese. So the cheese we're going to be making this evening, farmer's cheese, will have garlic and scallion. I'm just mincing up these garlic, and we'll also be using, just simply, all I do is a couple cuts through the garlic, and then if I have to go back over it and chop a few pieces a little smaller, then we can do that. But what I'm going to do is chop all these up and these garlic and get back to you. Alright, just finishing up here. And that's about as much as garlic and scallion that I need for a batch of farmer's cheese. So I'll do a check of my temperature. It's 148, so we'll be back with you again in a little bit as soon as we've reached that crucial point of 200. Temperature is reading 198, 199, so that's close enough for me. So this is the point where I'm going to take it off the heat and add my vinegar, turn the heat off and add my vinegar. Stirring in the vinegar. This is just half a cup. Nothing extremely exciting. Perhaps you can see the curds beginning to form. So I'm just turning the vinegar through the bottom. And basically, this is all there is to it, sticking to my spoon. Now I'll transfer the pot of milk over to the counter and show you the next step. Okay, what I'm doing is simply digging in and pulling the curd out, the cheese. Now you can do it as simple as this. Put this in a kerchief cheesecloth, drain it out. You can drain it for a long time and press it, and it becomes a harder sliceable cheese, or you can just strain it until, without pressing it, and use it as a spreadable cheese. And the flavor is going to be what you choose it to be. You can have just plain salted, which they like here, or when we add various herbs and spices. So I'll pull all this out and show you the next step. Alright, now I've taken, you can see the pot of whey here, little bits of cheese, I'll scrape that out, but for time's sake I'll move right along. This is the garlic and onion. I'll just put it right in here and be adding a little bit of pepper. Woo! Probably a little on the heavy side, but they like it like that. Some salt. And what I'm going to do here is simply mix it all into it. And what's going to happen is the heat of the whey that's still in there is going to help to draw out the flavor of the garlic and onion. Spread it through. Sort of moosh it all to get that flavor spread everywhere. Now the next step is going to be that I will strain this into a cheesecloth. I also find that by taking it out of the pot of water, I'm not going to slosh myself as I pour it over into the cheesecloth. So now you could just drain this lightly for a while and have a spreadable to use on crackers, or what I do is I will simply tie it up like my other cheese and let it drip. And what I will do is allow this to finish dripping. I'll put it in the refrigerator and allow it to chill while we check our bread, see if it's ready to go in the oven, and by the time the bread is baked, the cheese should be cooled enough. Alright, I'm over in the living room. We've got a fire going and I have my bread underneath this moist tea towel so it can rise. Okay, my farmer cheese has stopped dripping, so what I'm going to do is take it off the string and put it into a sieve, and we'll put it in the refrigerator. I have Dew helping me here. Alright. Right, I'm in my fridge here, and what I'm doing is sort of pressing the cheese. I will take a protein jar that I have, try to anyway. It's full of milk, and I'm going to put it on top, so that's a good weight. You can see it's pushing out some more moisture, and that's how it's going to sit until it's cooled off.